Welcome back. We've just had the judgment from the Supreme Court in the Binani Ultratech case, where the court has unequivocally said that the integrity of the highest bidder shall be preserved and out-of-court settlements by the second bidder cannot be considered sacred. In fact, they've almost dismissed that plea and sent it back to the NCLAT. We've been speaking with Shardul Shroff, Rajendra Chitale, Suharsh Sinha and Mr. H.P. Ranina. Well, the second question I have is, how can the process be improved upon? Rajendra, your thoughts?
I think this is a good beginning. At the same time, we need to figure out a framework, and this doesn't require a change in the law, by which we will be in a position to create a tension amongst bidders, at least in cases where a uniform set of conditionalities can be arrived at, so that thereafter we can follow the kind of process which has been successful in other auctions, where you don't have just one H1 who is declared once and for all, but there is, once you have selected a set of participants who qualify and you set certain common parameters, then on that you can actually have a process where between them they compete to, in effect, bid for a higher amount which can be recovered by the lenders. Okay. So I think this needs to evolve. Okay. Well,
Mr. Shroff, would you agree? My only fear with the suggestion made by Rajendra is that each case is so terribly unique. Will we be able to arrive at a common set of conditionalities? And secondly, the time value of money, as it is, we have seen the banking system battle with loans, bad loans, which are 4 or 5 years old. And therefore, if we try to fine-tune the process too much, will we lose? Your thoughts, Mr. Shroff?
I respectfully disagree with my friend Rajendra that you can have a principle where you bring in an auction route after you have a technical qualification. The structure which has been presently put in place with most of these resolution processes is that an evaluation matrix which was sort of introduced on the 6th of February into the rules is set up between the COC and the resolution professional, and a unique marking system which is publicly disclosed is made available to all the bidders, so everybody knows exactly how they would be evaluated. Okay. Now the law as it is emerging is quite clear that you have to put your best bid forward on the first day. You cannot have a second bite at the cherry. If you lose on the first bid first time, then you have to gracefully exit. You can't go on asking for a second and a third round. So this is the process which has been established by today's decision. It is not a judgment, it is really an order, because a judgment would require a full-fledged reasoning. Okay. In this particular case, all that they have said is case dismissed or case withdrawn. But it restores the NCLAT order, which basically had given a direction to NCLT to decide this matter without being influenced by the observations either of the NCLAT or of the NCLT of seeking an out-of-court settlement. Okay. So the court, by this deductive process, effectively saying, don't look at out-of-court processes, just decide this in accordance with the IBC.
Okay. Well, you get half a minute to come back on it. We have to get to the other issue.
Sure. I think this needs to evolve, because eventually this is a phase where only time will tell whether this is the best way of doing things or there are alternative ways which needs to be tried out.
Fair point. And of course, these are a whole complex of cases. Mr. Ranina, I want to come back to you on the broader issue. Until now, the courts, even in previous cases, even where they have given a hearing, have not stopped the NCLT process, which means that the judicial system has respected the fact that it has to get over in 180 days, at best 270 days. Do you think something can destabilize this? Do we need, say, a code of conduct for the IRP, something wrong, something corrupt that the IRP may do, which might kind of shake the judiciary's confidence in the process? What should we beware of?
No, I think this is a ongoing work in progress. So long as this process is going on in the usual form, I think it will be allowed. if there are some hitches, if there are some problems, maybe in course of time in the next couple of years, they will be sorted out at the legislative level. But at this point of time, I think this system should be allowed to function. It must have a reasonable 2 to 3 year period to stabilize itself and become a very important part of our judicial process, the judicial system. So I think we should not interfere at this stage. We should not tinker with it, allow it to settle down. And if after 3 years, if something needs to be amended, certainly we should look at it.
Okay. No, Mr. Ranina, I'm asking you because you as a member of the Reserve Bank board and I as a banking reporter have seen several previous attempts. I think every decade there has been one attempt, and I come back to it, the DRT in the 90s, the SARFAESI in the 2000s, have all been have all been impeded in some way with the courts having to play a role. This time, do you think the courts are respecting the timetable better, and should we therefore take this as an indication that the IBC process will deliver the goods?
Yes, I think so. I think for the first time, the Supreme Court is giving due credence to this to the legislative requirement of the time limit. In the past, sometimes they have the judges themselves have not, adhered to it. But this time, I think they are very serious because they feel that insolvency proceedings have a certain important role to play in the economic affairs of a country. And if you want India to be a good, investing destination, then this process has to be strengthened. So I think they are going out of their way to make sure that this is now going to be adhered to, so that you send the right signals to foreign investors.
Okay. Very quickly, Suharsh, running out of time, any do's and don'ts that can be prescribed for the insolvency professional so that the process goes on in this time-bound fashion?
Sure. So I think we're giving too much importance to the IP in how the bids are selected and what bids get ultimately voted on, because the evaluation matrix is decided by the bankers. The voting, the sole prerogative of choosing a plan lies with the Committee of Creditors. The IP's main focus should be running the company as a going concern. Okay. I think the IP is saddled with far too many responsibilities. He has to run the company as a going concern. He has to act as an investment banker and sell the company. And at the same time, make sure that there are no legal uncertainties, there are no legal issues in the whole process. So I think his main task is to make sure the company is run as a going concern. And the IP, I believe, is already under a lot of scrutiny. He's subject to a code of conduct. He is regulated by the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. And there are certain punishments and fines prescribed in the IBC in case he acts in a malafide manner. So I think the IP is not really the real focus of attention as far as I can see it. It's more on the Committee of Creditors and how bankers make up their minds as to what is the best evaluation matrix and what is the best process they want to follow for every case.
Sure. Any advice to the Committee of Creditors then to ensure that the process doesn't go beyond the 270 days?
Well, I think as we go along, if we are able to refine it in a manner that we get it right financially as well as legally, that's the #1 agenda I think we need to achieve.
Okay. Yeah. Well, final thoughts from you, Mr. Shroff. Do you think we now have the judiciary's blessings fully for the IBC process? And any advice, yet again, like I asked Rajendra, for the Committee of Creditors?
I think one area which I would certainly like to comment upon is the interference by the High Courts or by the NCLT at the stage when the process is ongoing. The aspect that you challenge whether or not the IBC itself is or the CIRP is maintainable, issues in relation to eligibility. These are issues which impede the process, and then ultimately the NCLT and the courts have to search out a principle as to whether the time taken by them should be excluded from the 270 days or the 180 days. I think they need to be fast and quick in their decisions. You can't be sitting over a matter for 2 to 3 weeks. You cannot be, letting admissions take. I've had a case where an admission has taken 5 months. So these are some things which are completely antithetical to the proceedings and the timelines which are prescribed under the IBC. there is a lot going well for the IRP, a lot going well for the COC, but the NCLTs themselves have to discipline themselves in terms of disposal, in terms of the time that they give for arguing admissions. It's not a trial.
Yes.
But the NCLTs are almost conducting a trial before admission.
Fair point. I think you'll have summarized it excellently. I don't have to repeat. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me in this extremely erudite discussion.